Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, I'm Josette. Thanks so much for watching. So, even though I don't have locks anymore, I still want to talk about locks. So if it looks like I'm not wearing any clothes throughout this video, it's not true. I'm wearing clothes. It's hot. So I'm just wearing a little crop. But anyway, so I recently cut off my locks, but I do plan on getting them again in the future. I will always love locks and how they look on me as well as other people. I think that locks are gorgeous. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the multiple different ways and different methods of starting locks. So towards the end of this video, I'm going to talk about how my first set of locks were started, and I'm also going to talk about what I plan on doing and how I plan on starting my second set of locks. So definitely stay tuned towards the end of this video because I'm going to talk about that. So let's just get into the video. So the first method I'm going to talk about is the most organic way to start your locks, and this method is to freeform. So this method is to let your locks develop and form without manipulation, without parts, and usually almost most often without products. With this method, you don't separate or retwist your hair, and you don't create defined parts in your hair either. The freeform method is definitely for a free-spirited person and also someone who doesn't want to have a lot of maintenance. This method is for someone who just wants to let their hair do what it wants to do. So the next couple of methods I'm going to mention are basically variations of essentially the same idea. So the first one I'm going to talk about is starting your locks with braids, also known as braid locks. So you'll need a couple of inches to start out to really make this method work. About 4 inches or more. The braided pattern in your hair will take up to a year to fully disappear. So this method is good for people who want to have fairly low maintenance, and they also want to have a neat appearance in the beginning. This can be maintained with either palm rolling or interlocking, really depending on your preference. During this method, as your hair begins to lock, the ends of your braids will unravel, but over time they will start to seal and form into a lock. Some people like to use thread and sew it into the bottom of their locks so that, it won't unravel, but that is purely a personal preference. The next method I want to talk about is the 2-strand twist method. So this is a great option for really coily hair because each section of your twist will very easily start to fuse together to form into one uniform lock. So the 2 separate sections of the twist can stay in your hair for up to 2 years, but that really does depend on your hair texture and also the length of your hair. If you start out your 2-strand twist on really long hair, of course it's going to take a bit longer for that twist to disappear. But if you start on really short hair, then it will not take as long for the twist to disappear. Okay, the next 2 methods I'm going to talk about are the comb coils and finger coils to start locks. So let's start with comb coils. This method requires the least amount of hair to begin your locks, which is often why people use this method. It's often why this is one of the most popular ways to start locks. If you look on Instagram, then you'll see that a lot of people start their locks using the comb coil method. So your hair can be as short as 2 inches to start this process and to start your lock journey. This is a really popular way also to start traditional locks. So basically a comb is used to coil your hair into uniform sections. Usually a lot of product is applied to the hair to really have the curls curling into each other to form that coiled locked look. So this method will take longer to fully lock just because you're not starting off with a twisted or braided state. You're just starting with your loose hair kind of coiled up. So it does take longer to fully lock, and this method is also sensitive to water, so it's advised to just stay away from water in the beginning unless you're washing your hair, but going swimming or doing anything like that will really cause your coils to unravel. before they have a chance to lock. So, like the method I just mentioned, finger coils are essentially the same thing, but you're just using a different tool to achieve it. You're using your fingers, and basically it's the exact same look, but you're just separating your hair into sections and using your finger to twist your hair and to create that coil. Both of these methods require a lot of patience because they do take longer to fully form. But the end result about a year later is a fully formed traditional loc. And of course, the size of your coil really depends on your personal preference. You can do smaller, medium, bigger, it's really up to you. The next method I'm going to talk about is the interlocking method. So to get this, you will either have to use a tool or your fingers, although it is much easier and way more practical to use the tool. Some people use a latch hook, some people use a crochet hook. I think that crochet hooks are fine. You can go back on my channel. I actually show you the tool that I used. They can be found on Amazon. They can be found at Walmart in the sewing section. It's really an easily accessible tool. So most people create micro locks with this method, but the size of your locks is really up to you. You don't have to create micro locks. You can tell your stylist, or if you're doing it on your own, you can tell them how big you want your parts to be. The size of your parts really does determine how big your locks will end up. You don't have to do really tiny parts to do the interlocking method. It's really your preference. So after the initial install, once you've decided what parts you want and once all of them are installed, basically what interlocking does, it's kind of like a four-way braid. And it's not a flat braid, it creates kind of a rounded shape. So the braid is like a round, interwoven braid. So after the initial install of your interlocks, sister locks, brother locks, you will notice that your hair starts to swell up and you will also see a lot of frizziness. But do not fear, because they will settle and they will start to form and to lock. So to me, this method is practically like getting instant locks, which is why it has become such a popular way to start your loc journey. So the second last method I want to talk about is commonly used on straight hair, Caucasian hair, or just wavy hair. This is the back combing method. Basically, in this method, the hair is teased with a comb. It's teased upwards towards the scalp. So basically the loc is formed using the palm rolling method to really shape and mold the hair once all the back combing has been done. So the last method that I want to talk about has become also very, very popular, and this is using loc extensions to kickstart your loc journey. So most of the time I feel like this method is used to just completely avoid the awkward stage. You know, the baby loc phase of your locks. Everyone complains while they're in this phase and they're excited when they've passed it. I completely understand wanting to just completely skip that step and just go straight into having longer locks. So before I really jump into the details of this, loc extensions can be heavier than what your locks would be like if it was just your natural locks at that length. But it is a good way, like I said, to skip the awkward stage and just get straight into it. This method cannot be done on sister locks just because your sister locks or brother locks will already be formed, so there is nothing for the extension to hold onto and to grab onto and to intertwine with. So for installing extensions, basically you will start with usually comb coils, or maybe you've already started your journey, but you can start with comb coils, and then the extensions will be attached to the end of your locks. So the end of your locks are open and the extension is attached. Basically, it can be a pre-made set of crochet style locks, or it can be someone else's locks, or maybe you're reattaching your own locks once you've done a whole new set on your hair. Once that happens, they the extension is attached to your hair and it's molded into it using kind of like a crochet hook to mesh it all together, and it becomes really seamless and it looks like just your hair. And there's a lot of locked hair going around that looks really, really real, even if it isn't actually human hair. So I definitely think it's a good option if you just want length right away. Usually though, with lock extensions, your hair you do have to have bigger size locks. I really haven't seen people do lock extensions with really small locks, so maybe in the future that will be developed and that will be available, but most of the time it's like medium sized to larger locks. So this is a really good option if you want to have the appearance of mature locks right away, and also if you just want that length right away. Those are all of the methods for starting locks. Now let's chat quickly about how I started my locks. So my first set of locks were installed using the finger coil method. I've already explained what the finger coil method is, so you guys are already an expert on what that means. My hair was parted into fairly small square sections and of course twisted by hand. I was fully locked by about 12 months. This method definitely taught me how to be patient, but I loved the look of it once it was fully locked. It was exactly how I pictured my locks to be. Now, for my new set of locks that I plan on getting in the future, I actually want to start it using the interlock method. The reason for this is just for the ease of it. I really don't want to do the whole 12 months to lock my hair. I've done it already and I definitely want to try something different. A couple of years into my previous lock journey, actually I switched over to the interlocking method to retwist about 5 or so years into my journey, so that's what I was doing. I'm very familiar with how it all works, so I'm a lot more comfortable with that method and it worked really well for me, especially just for the fact that it lasts so long. It looks like your hair's fresh for a long while. Because my hair is so thick and it grows at a pretty reasonable rate, doing the palm rolling method as a form of retwisting just wasn't practical enough for me. And I didn't really want to have to be in my hair all the time retwisting. So interlocking worked for me because I retwisted every 6 to 8 weeks and it was all good. Also, by the time I get my next set of locks, I'm sure my life will be even busier, so I already know that sister locks or interlocking will be the best method for me. By then, who knows, maybe I will have my second child already. Just with a busier lifestyle, sister locks and the interlocking method would definitely match and suit my lifestyle a lot better. So I definitely want to do sister locks for my next set, and I think I even want to go a bit smaller. I'm toying with the idea, although I did love the size of my locks previously, but I do want to have more locks per square inch, so I definitely want to have more locks specifically at the front of my hair, especially for postpartum and all that. I think it would just look a lot more fuller and a lot more healthy to have more locks at the front. And I love the looks of smaller locks. I think it looks so effortless and so gorgeous. So I'd probably go a little bit smaller. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely comment below how you started your locks, how you plan on starting your locks, and also how you maintain them. And I hope that this video helped, that you've learned something. Maybe it's given you more clarity on how you want to start your locks, or maybe how you want to start your next set of locks if you've done a big chop. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!